Boom. All right, ladies and gentlemen, never be outworked. Today we're going to be learning how to balance high stakes careers with the one and only family life. So let's get this show started. Here we go.
Shut up and sit down.
Look, a business can give you everything you want in life: prestige, wealth, freedom. It can also take everything away from you. This show is for those who are willing to take that risk. These are the real life stories of entrepreneurs. But before we start, I have one small favor to ask. Please leave a comment. It can be advice, critiques, tips, feedback, or share this with someone because your engagement is the most valuable and most powerful form of social currency. So thank you, and welcome to another episode of Business Bros. All right, business bros. Today, we're diving into the world of relentless pursuit and transformative growth with a man who embodies the spirit of never being outworked. From the challenging terrains of special warfare to the competitive fields of IRONMAN races, he's a best-selling author, transformative life coach, and a mentor in real estate and professional development. Bringing a unique blend of discipline and authenticity and actionable insight, let's welcome to the show, Mr. Justin Loutfy. All right, Justin, let's do this thing, man.
I gotta get you to do all my intros. That was pretty fire.
That's what I'm talking about, dude. It's all about having fun, man. It's all about having fun. First of all, thank you for taking time to be on the show with me. Let's jump into this. First question I always ask, it's the same one for everybody. You're here to promote something, to talk about what you do for a living. So what is that specifically for you?
You know, in my day job, I run a hedge fund. So I help raise funds for a lot of businesses. Specifically, we run an investment for both accredited and non-accredited investors right now, where we help people get out of debt. So that's my day job. But I also really love speaking on stages. You know, later this summer, I'm speaking with James Dixon in Utah and going out to North Carolina to speak to a big church group. So that's kind of something I'm passionate about and love doing. But the two of those are the things you can find me at.
Yeah, no, and helping people get out of debt is not an easy feat. For a lot of them, it's really a life-changing opportunity. I think a lot of it has to do with the mind game, especially when it comes to money. It's oftentimes learning a couple sets of rules. I always say that the first time you play Monopoly, you probably sucked at it, but the second time you probably had a chance of winning. And the only difference between the two is you understood the rules to the game. And if somebody comes in and kind of shows you an opportunity that you may not have known existed, you can change their lives. And I think that's sounds to me like that's what you're already doing. You're also come from special warfare. You got a background in Ironman races. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I spent 12 years in the military. I started out as a mechanic, working on F-16 jets, which was a blast, honestly. And then I ended the last 5 years in special warfare, where I got to go all over the world and train with some of the best in the world. And that was a really, really cool experience. Decided to hop out of that when I had kids. I got 2 girls now. I was traveling way too much to be in that world. But I needed to find something that really helped me kind of push that greatness. You know, I knew I still had a lot of hunger in me, and I had to find something that would allow me to search for that. And that's where I found Ironman. So I've been racing Ironman races for about 4 years now.
And you know, it's funny. I always thought I was a little extreme. I would wake up and run like 6 miles a day. I cut it down right now. I'm down to like 3 miles a day, but I increased my weights. And so like, switching it up a little bit. But Ironman, like all of a sudden, that's a whole different ball game. I feel like weak compared to that. What's it like to compete in those? Or train?
I'll tell you, I signed up for an Ironman before I ever had a bike. Oh. I had got back from a deployment to Iraq, and that showed me that I was capable of doing great things, because there I oversaw like 6 different locations across Iraq and Syria and all combat operations there. And so I came back knowing I was ready to tackle something, and I didn't know what that was, but I knew if I signed up for something that big, it would help me get after it. So I figured I'll sign up first, and then I'll get the bike and I'll figure out the rest, because I was a bad runner then. I still am now. But it is such a cool environment and community, because anyone you see who's competed in Ironman or raced them together, like it's such a welcoming community of people. It's awesome.
And I've heard that the ones who are successful at it are the ones who sign up and have that date on the calendar, because everybody talks about doing a triathlon or an Ironman or a mud run or whatever. They talk about it, they just never do it because it's never actually on the calendar, right? So once you have it set, now you got to get the bike. Now you got to go for those runs. Now you got to get yourself training, because every day it's getting a little bit closer, and it goes parallel with what you have right behind you, right? Never be outworked. You wrote a book, Never Outworked, Stepping into the Light. What's one of the like key messages you feel, I mean, that life's brought into you, that you wrote about in your book, that people kind of resonate with when they read it?
Well, the main reason I wrote it was I wanted to show people what's possible. I didn't come from a lot. Like, I didn't grow up with a ton. And so people often use that as a limiting factor in their life. But it's not. It doesn't have to be. And so my goal with putting out this book was to just write different stories and show different points of my life that show you that you can make it wherever you want to be in life if you're willing to put in the work. Because that's the key. Just like you said, everyone will tell you, hey, I want to race a triathlon, I want to do an Ironman. So many people have reached out to me and said, oh, Justin, I'd love to do a race with you. And I'm like, cool, let's do it. Not one person has done a race with me yet, because it comes down to commitment and it comes down to action, and it's no different than anything. And that's the beautiful thing about this country, is that no matter what you want to do in your life, you can make that happen if you're willing to become never outworked.
One of my mentors has a great saying. He says, "There's no such thing as $1 million idea, only $1 million execution." I think that goes not just
Amen.
in business, but pretty much with everything, right? Like you can talk about it, but until you take action and you start to feel the soreness and improve your numbers, nothing's ever gonna change at that point. Now you're an Ironman competitor. That does require that you go out and do that physical training, that you start to execute on a daily basis, because when you show up and you've never trained before, you're going to hurt yourself. So
Oh,
you
it's
got to put
rough.
in that stuff, right? How do you balance that with your professional life, with your personal responsibilities? Two girls now. How does one balance, never get outworked, do an Ironman, but still have a family life?
It's not, I'm not going to tell you it's easy, but it does take work. And I don't really look for balance, but I look to try to be the best in all of those aspects I can. So, I try to really push myself to be the best athlete I can, because then allows me to be a better businessman, because tapping into this athleticism or this competitiveness that I need. Like, personally, I need that competitiveness, and so then I can pour that over into business. And then it also pours over into being a father and being a husband. I want to be the best husband and father I can. So I'm going to be the best athlete that I can. I'm going to be the best business person, because then I don't have to worry about work when it's time for me to just be full speed dad, and I'm just singing and dancing with my kids, because I put it all on the table earlier. I already got up at 4, and I went for the run. I went to the gym, whatever it took that day. And then I got in and I put all the hours in at work. And I think the thing that most people miss is being intentional with their time versus just spending lots of time, because everybody can spend lots of time at work, but are you really intentional with your time? And that's the differentiating point I found.
I love, and you glazed over it, but I kind of want to harp on this too, because I think it's key. You're taking control of your time, and you said, I'm up at 4 in the morning, I get my workout in, and people are gonna think you're crazy, dude, because I do the same thing. That is my time. I know that when I wake up at that hour, my kids are asleep, my wife is asleep, my dog is asleep, like everybody's out. It gives me the time to do what I need to do. By the time I finish my whole workout in the morning, it's an hour and a half, um, all in for that whole time period. Nobody's still awake, and I've gotten my stuff done that I needed to get done. I'm ready to kick on the day. But the question I always get asked is, "Oh, you must not like sleep." I prioritize it. Tell me about you, man. I mean, waking up at 4 a.m., what does it actually take to do that consistently?
So I go to bed at 9. Like, I go, I'm early. I'm early to bed, and my wife and I are in this journey together, in like trying to be as fit as possible. So we got these like Whoop bands, which will track your sleep and tell you all about your recovery and stuff. And so we really track that together, which also brings us closer, which is
Hmm.
nice. But I also know if I only sleep 5 hours, then I'm not going to have great recovery. I'm not going to have a good, performance in the gym. It's almost gonna be like a waste. So then I have to be intentional with my time. Like I said, if we're up from 4 to 9, that's a ton of time in the day, but you have to really schedule that out and be intentional and say, okay, I'm going to bike for 2 hours, then I'm going to get up, I'm going to have breakfast with the kids and the family, then I'm going to go to work. And you just really spell it out so that you're not sitting on the computer just wasting time, but you can go full speed at everything you do.
Being intentional. I mean, it sounds so easy. And it actually, it's simple, it's not easy, right? It's simple to map out your day. It's simple to put those blocks in. It's not easy to stick to them and do what you're supposed to be doing in those time blocks. Now, you're also a life coach, right? So emphasizing you emphasize the importance of authenticity. You are probably talking about being intentional with your time with your clients on a regular basis. How do you guide them to remain authentic, to remain competitive, to actually abide by those intentional time blocks that they're setting for themselves?
So I'll tell you, I actually stopped coaching. I tried it because a lot of people had asked me to coach, and so I gave it a shot, and it wasn't for me because the person that I need to find to coach is very specific. Because if I tell you that you are not working hard enough and you are not being intentional with your time, but yet you come back and tell me that you put in 8 hours, a lot of times that'll cause strife because someone can sit down for 8 hours and really accomplish 30 minutes of work, and that's where I found trouble with coaching. And so I took a step back on that. There are a lot better coaches out there than me for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's difficult. But you come from a military background, right? So I know you've had to deal with people who don't have the best work ethic, but they got to follow the chain of command. You got to motivate your people to kind of move, and that leadership skill is going to translate into the business setting that you work in. Maybe not into the coaching if you didn't want to go that route, find those specific clients, but it does parallel a lot of what you do in business. How does what you've done with your military past, with your competition past, help you with your clientele today, whether it's helping them to get out of debt or anything else that you're doing in business professionally?
I was really fortunate in the military and being able to do special warfare because you take a career field that 85% of people who go out for it don't make it. So you have a very select few people who have the right juice to really get into that career field or in that world. And so then you create a competitive excellence environment. And competitive excellence is a term that was brought onto me by our coach when I was in the Air Force, which is, you're competing with everyone to be the best person in the room, but you're not doing it for you. You're doing it to raise the standard of the room. So I would want to beat you, but then I'd want to turn around and help you be better so that we all got better together. And when you have that kind of room full of people, it makes for an amazing, amazing experience where it's just high performance. And so when you look at that same kind of mentality in business, yes, I want to be the best. Like, yes, my goal is to raise money and create a successful fund. But I also want to reach out and help you. And I want to build a real relationship with you so that we become teammates. And then when you're looking for something to invest in, you're going to reach out to me because we've built that relationship. You know that I'm not here just to take your money. I'm here to help you get better, to help you have a better financial picture, to help you make money with your money.
It's not always the easiest thing for people to put money away for themselves, get themselves out of debt, and then to go ahead and invest into something. Earlier, you said you help people who are accredited investors and people who are not accredited investors. For those who are not on the accredited investor side, what is the path to get them in a position where they can become an investor and hopefully get them to the point where they become accredited at some point in the future, but at least to get started? What's the path that you recommend for them?
It comes down to having a different relationship with money, understanding that money is just a tool where a lot of the times we learn growing up to kind of stash money away and it never gets used. So you just kind of stash it away for a rainy day, stash it away for retirement. instead of using money as a tool, because if you use it properly, it'll grow. If you use it properly, it'll allow you to have more joy out of your today. And that's a concept that people learn later because they learn about investing. Or if you grew up in like a business environment or business household, you get to learn about the different tax strategies and different things that you never get taught unless you find yourself in that world. And I was really fortunate that I had some really great mentors take me aside and show me the powers of business ownership and show me, the tax advantages of owning a business and how to invest. And I bit off fully and I just dove right in. I said, I need to learn more and more about this, until it brought me to the point where I'm at now, where now I get to help people find great investments.
I remember very early on as a young entrepreneur, I made a ton of mistakes. I went broke on my very first business, but it wasn't until going broke that I realized what I didn't know. And then I ended up going back to school, mainly because I didn't know who Uncle Sam was in the state of California, why they were taking my money. So I went back to school and learned about that. I wasn't really recording anything that I did in business very well. So I got my degree in accounting and I needed to know how the money game worked. It's the rules. It's those little things that you don't actually learn until you get some skin in the game. I remember playing poker online way back when it was super popular, early 2000s. And I remember playing online for free, and it was never very interesting, but you play for pennies. And all of a sudden, it got really interesting. You learn some lessons. And that's how I feel a lot of initial investors need to get started. Open a small account, an E-Trade account, an Acorns account, whatever it is. Start putting some money in the game a little bit at a time, because you learn so much faster when it's your money at stake. When you talk to, I have 17-year-old kids, by the way, high school kids that take a class called financial algebra, and it's hard to get them to understand some of these things because they haven't quite hit the world yet. Any advice for a 17-year-old kid about to graduate, by the way, like if they're about to get started in an environment that we're living in today with inflation the way it is, jobs the way they are, what advice would you give them?
This comes down to the part where it's called stepping into the light. Because as a kid, especially in high school, you learn all the things that you should do and all the things you shouldn't do, all the good schools to go to, all the good majors to do, and all the bad majors. And it really narrows people's creativity and things that they should, or they think they should do in the world. And I was no different. I came out of the military, I went into operations. I got my MBA because someone said to get my MBA, and I worked my way up until I was an executive. And that was the peak. And I stood there and I was like, well, now what? Now what am I supposed to do? And we teach that so early. And so for kids, I just tell them to, if you can start to let that go, like let it all go, whatever it is that just lights you up. Like whatever it is that you go out and do that just completely lights you up. When you walk into a room, someone knows you're completely being you because you're just filled with joy. Like you think about when you hold up a toddler and they're staring back at you, they're just full of joy and it brings light into your life. That is the thing that's missing because we dim it as you get older and we tell you everything you shouldn't do, versus how do you find the most true, most authentic version of you? Because if you run at that, that's going to bring prosperity. You look at the most successful people in our world, none of them did whatever it is that you're supposed to do when it came to the traditional path.
And that's true. And I hear that often, the whole idea of finding your authenticity, finding your authentic self. I don't know if I've actually found that for myself. And I know I've asked myself a lot. Maybe it's because I crossed that 40-year-old marker at some point, right? And I'm like, what am I doing? Did I do everything I was supposed to be doing? Am I supposed to be going this way? Do I want to start something else new? Do I really want to go? Like, I keep asking myself those types of questions and figuring out, trying to figure out who is me. At 40 is kind of a weird question. And I'd imagine, and I remember being like, I remember being in high school thinking I'm going to go play pro baseball. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. And it didn't end up happening. And then I remember standing there in college thinking, what am I doing here? Right. And now I'm standing at 40, like, did I do it all? Like, how does one find that authentic self? What are some things that you can do to find that authenticity and have that joy every day?
Think about all the times that you hold yourself back. The saddest truth is there's a version of most people inside that they never show out to the world because we're
Mhm.
afraid of criticism. With social media, it creates this world where you're just afraid of criticism, because if you put something out there that doesn't get a lot of likes or interaction, you're like, oh, shouldn't have done that. But there's a version of most people inside of them that never gets shown to the world because we're so afraid of getting that negative feedback. And so that turns into all these moments when you just hold yourself back, from doing something. And maybe it's just being silly with your kids. Your kids want you to get up and dance and sing and do whatever it is they're doing. And even as a parent, that'll cross your mind and you'll be like, you know what? I don't want to do that, because you feel this judgment from times past. And so I make it a point to just not to just I have it on my I have a daily question list of things that I need to do. And one of them is, were you silly with your kids?
Mm.
Did you love on your wife? Like, did you go to the gym? Very specific stuff to do every day. But you think about all those moments when you want to do something and then you just feel hindered, like you shouldn't. Those are the moments that I'm talking about that you've got to learn how to push through.
Yeah, we are ultimately our biggest critic. That voice in our head speaks to us in ways that we wouldn't let another person speak to us in like 100 years, right? But we say it to ourselves all the
100%.
time. It's funny because I wake up in the morning and I purposely I look in the mirror. I'm like, hey, what's up, handsome? Like the first thing I tell myself every day, because I what else? If I go to the mirror and I look at myself, and the first thing I do is like, oh, dude, look at the bags under your eyes. Oh, you look like shit today. Oh, look at that. You should have got more. Like, I'm knocking myself down the first thing I do in the morning. So I love that you have that checklist, because that's one of the things I do in the morning. And I trust me, sometimes I feel weird and I laugh at myself when I say it, but it's the first thing that I need to hear in the morning to get myself going in a positive direction. Because again, it's like anything else, right? When your alarm goes off, you could hit the snooze button or you can sit up in your bed. The first action you take is that win that's going to get you to that next level, and stack up the wins in the morning. All of a sudden, by the time everybody gets started, I've already had a series of wins. I'm on a good way, on a good pathway. Let me ask you about some
Even
challenges. Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
I would say to even think about where that thought comes from, because most people will look at themselves and be like, oh, you know what? I'm a little fat. I'm a little out of shape, or, I don't have any hair, like whatever it is.
Got that one.
That thought comes from like you comparing yourself to someone else, but realize like you were created perfect. You were created as you should be. Like you were created in a way that only you is going to push your light out into the world. But yet we dim it to try to be like somebody else. And it's ridiculous when you understand that only you can push the world forward in a way that you were created to do so. So why are we trying to be like everybody else?
Man, it I was talking to somebody, or I don't even remember who it was, but they were saying how we haven't really learned how to harness this social media era, this tool that we have at our disposal. We've been given it to it. It's kind of like a drug that's been given to us, and for the most part, we've been utilizing it probably the wrong way. And generations from now, they're going to look back and be like, "That's how you don't do things, right? This is how you destroy your humanity. Is how you destroy your own personal beliefs in yourself, your own confidence." I think it has a lot to do with that comparison that you're talking about. We just see so many pictures and videos of what we think life is going to be like, but the grass is never greener on the other side. It's always greener where you water it. And so make sure that you water your grass as often as you possibly can. I was going to ask you about challenges, right? Everybody, as much as we all want to be happy all the time, we are going to come across hiccups. Are there any challenges that you can remember that knocked you down, but you found a way kind of through them, and they've kind of either been a scar that you wear as a badge of honor or a lesson that you learn that you take on going forward?
So I don't hold that stuff anymore, but I'll tell you I did for a really long time.
Mm.
And that's kind of the journey we took you through in the book with love. In fact, like I grew up being told I was ugly and pathetic, and I wasn't going to make it anywhere in life. And so I grew up in an area where I really became angry. I became angry at life. I became angry at other kids who had a better life than me, and I was determined to make a better life out of myself. But with that also came me getting in trouble, me getting arrested and kicked out of college. um, I hit a lot of hiccups because I was attacking life from a point of anger. And all I really wanted to do was prove to the world that I could be something in the world, until the point where I realized, that only can get you so far. And so I had to learn to forgive all of that crap, because everybody's got it. Everyone's got some story. Everyone's got some adversity. Everyone's got some sort of baggage that you carry, and it might fuel you. But once you learn how to forgive that and really learn how to love yourself, then you're able to really push that out into the world in a way that performance becomes something I had never imagined before. We're able to hit new heights and accomplishments of things that I had never thought of before, because I was too busy playing angry instead of just trying to help other people and help the world. Well, I can't help other people when I'm just angry at life.
It's weird how some of that anger settles in deep, and it comes out in places you didn't quite expect, or you don't even see when it's coming out sometimes, right? Like I mean, you're talking about some of the things you grew up struggling with that were seeds planted when you were younger. How do you identify the ones that you need to forgive and let go when sometimes you don't even know which ones they are that they're affecting you?
For me, it came down to being a father. I learned that, and you see this a lot, but a lot of times when people grow up in a bad household, then they end up passing that stuff on to their kids because they have this negative self-image. And I didn't realize until much later that I had a negative self-image of myself. And that I didn't want to pass that on to my kids. And once I really started to focus on that and realize that you can't love somebody fully until you love yourself, and seeing my two beautiful daughters, I was like, I need to fix this. And so I went to work. Like I went to therapy. I started reading. Like I went into the word. Like I was searching for ways to fix that, because the last thing I wanted to do was pass that on to my girls. And I'll tell you now, every chance I get, I stop and I tell my girls that, hey, you are beautiful and you're amazing, and I will always love you.
Yep. I was asked recently, and had family that's having young kids right now, and they were like, what's the best advice you can give me as a dad? I'm like, you're going to try your best not to mess up your kids, and you're going to mess them up some way, somehow. But if you show up every day and you show them that you love them and you're there to support them, you're going to do an amazing job as a parent. Are you going to mess them up? Sure. You're going to say some things or teach them some things that probably are going to, leave some scars at some point, but they know that at the end of the day, you're there for them. You love them, and they feel loved. And that's the best thing a parent can do. Hands down. I mean, I don't know how else to explain parenting. I think you did you're doing a great job with your girls and mentioning it to them every day. I know every morning I would tell my kids, be the best version of you can be, right? Be the best Mila you can be the best Liam you can be. Those are my kids. And they got all their, be the best monkeys you can be. And that's it, right? I don't pressure. I don't apply things like that. I try to lead by example, show them I love them, and hopefully they want to do the best for them. And I think you're doing a lot of the same stuff. So if, Justin, people want to reach out, they want to find out about your book, they want to find out about what you're offering as far as the different investment opportunities or the ability to get out of debt, how can they do that?
Easiest way is Instagram. So you can just hit me up at justin.loutfy, or you can go to my site, justinloutfy.com, which is on the bottom. Like I said, I speak at a lot of places, and I'd love to help however I can.
Dude, we had a great conversation again. Yeah. And for those of you who don't know, I was like 5 minutes late this morning or to the show today. It's I Justin, I thought, I was like, dude, I'm running a little bit behind. And so I want to say thank you for that little bit of delay. But we had a great show here today. Again, your book, by the way, say what the title of the book is, where they can get it.
Never Outworked. Yeah, you can find it on Amazon.
Boom. All right, dude. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Look, at the end of the day, work, I get it. We live in an era right now where you got that hustle and grind culture, and you don't know where you're gonna go. But honestly, some of that work has just got to be internal, and that's a lot of what we talked about today. Get your mind in the right spot. Treat yourself how you deserve to be treated, not how you're talking to yourself every single day. Make a few subtle changes, and it could drastically change the outlook and the direction of your life in general. And Justin's helping people do that every single day. So make sure you guys drop by his website, scrolling across the bottom. It's just his name, justinloutfy.com, justinloutfy.com. Justin, thank you very much for being on the show today. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace. And we're out.
It's over. Go home.
Is your business in need of marketing? Try starting a podcast, but not just any podcast. Podcast like a pro. We can show you how to take your business from being invisible to becoming a brand people trust. Go to www.businessbros.biz to get